Hello, guys, and welcome back to episode 4 of the Entity's Ear podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the July developer update and the PTB with Nick Cage. So, this kind of came out of nowhere. It literally just dropped today, actually, and the PTB went live at 4 p.m. UK time. So, we're just going to go through it. So, it's going to be quite a long one today. So, grab some popcorn, grab a drink. Do what you got to do, and if you like what you're seeing, please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment on what you think. And if you're interested in the DBD Dr. Trauts tournament, please join his Discord. Right, introduction over and done with. Let's crack straight into it. So, Mr. Trouts, we're going to talk about the Nick Cage thing first because that's just come out. So, wow, it's very interesting to say the least. Do you agree?
Yeah, obviously we knew he was coming into the game for like a couple of weeks since the anniversary. It's just so weird that he's actually in DBD now, and his perks are pretty fun, so we can get into them in a minute if you want.
Yeah, no worries. So, new content, new survivor. So I'll ignore this feature bots and UI stuff. So we'll go straight into the Nick Cage stuff. So, his first perk is Dramaturgy, and I hope I said that right. I definitely probably said that wrong. So, activates while you are healthy. While running, press the active ability button 2 to run with knees high for 0.5 seconds and gain 25% haste for 2 seconds, followed by an unknown effect, one of the following. Expose for 12 seconds, gain 25% haste for 2 seconds, scream but nothing happens, gain a random rare item in hand with random add-ons and drop any item held. The same effect cannot happen twice in a row and causes exhaustion for 60, 50, 40 seconds and cannot be used while exhausted. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
What are your initial thoughts on that?
it's a very strange exhaustion perk. I don't know. It's just a meme perk, you know. It's like what?
Yeah, it's like you
um,
can't take this and play it seriously, can you?
no, it's just. I think it's just for people that want to mess around with the game. It looks fun. I'll run it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little perk, I think.
Yeah, you can't take this if you want to be serious. I mean, it's one of those ones where you could use it right and it could just work so well for you, or you could use it and you could just die. Um, but it
Yeah,
yeah,
like
the,
25 25% haste is definitely nothing to scoff at, especially if you get lucky and do it for 4 seconds.
and the knees
Uh,
high for 0.5 seconds. Is that kind of like a you're slow for 0.5 seconds, like you do some animation, then you run?
I don't know if you're slowed. I don't know if it's just some goofy animation that they've decided to run. It doesn't say anything about being hindered, so I assume you don't get a penalty at all. I'm not sure though. I haven't really seen it in action. I guess we'll have to see. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a weird perk.
So when it gain a random rare item, so you could literally get anything.
Yeah, I think we saw I saw Otz's stream earlier, and he got a Ranger medkit, a very rare medkit with both ultra rare items. But then obviously you could get a broken key with nothing, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just it's a really RNG based random perk. It's just I don't yeah. I think if I had to rate it, it'd obviously be bad because it's just reliant on RNG. But I don't think people are meant to take this perk seriously. I think it's just a
Yeah,
fun perk.
I think it's like, everyone wants to have a bit of fun in the game. Because I should imagine when, um, you know, Nick Cage's team and Behaviour sat down, they probably said we're probably not going to do something serious because I think Nick Cage is known as being a bit of a funny man, a bit
Yeah,
silly. So yeah, I don't. I think we can see with the rest of these perks, after having read them, it's nothing too serious. It's not going to be like any meta-defining perks. Okay, so the next one is Scene Partner. Activates when you're in the killer's terror radius. Whenever you look at the killer, scream, then see the killer's aura for 3, 4, and 5 seconds. There is a chance you will scream again if you do. You will see the killer's aura for additional 2 seconds. Scene Partner then goes on cooldown for 60 seconds. Now, this perk is really taking the mickey, because if you're in the killer's terror radius, most of the time you're going to probably be able to see them, but if it's like a killer with a big terror radius like Wesker, it might actually help you. But then again, the downside is, well, the audio cue will proc, and it might make you easily findable by the killer. So, what are your initial thoughts on Scene Partner?
Well, like you say, it's a very silly perk. It kind of has some similarities to Object of Obsession, where if you look every 30 seconds, the killer's aura will be revealed to you, and your aura revealed to the killer for 3 seconds. So it's got some similarities with that perk to a degree, in the sense of you can sort of see each other. But it's obviously got a longer cooldown, and it's obviously got a longer aura reading than Object of Obsession has. It's just very strange. It's really weird. And it's whenever you look at the killer as well. So I guess it sort of has that old
Yeah.
spine chill effects to it. I'm not sure if this means like through walls, or if it's like Ghostface where you have to like look at him. I guess we'll see. But I mean, it doesn't. It's just a very
Yeah,
goofy
it's
perk,
just
you know.
like this, I think the whole point of it is the scream. It's like while you're getting chased by the killer, you're screaming or something like that. I think it's supposed to be pretty funny. And I think it's
Yeah.
quite. I can't wait to try it out personally.
Oh, definitely.
Getting the adept challenge with this guy is going to be hilarious. I
Oh.
think that might have to be a video coming soon. I think
Hmm.
that's definitely worth it. And I think you'll see some of those coming out quite soon on YouTube from other content creators as well. Okay, moving on to plot twist. Activates when you're injured. Press the active ability button 2 while crouched and motionless to silently enter the dying state. When using plot twist to enter the dying state, you leave no blood pools, make no noise, and you can fully recover from the dying state. When you recover by yourself using plot twist, you are fully healed instantly, and you gain 50% haste for 2, 3, 4 seconds. This perk then deactivates if you recover by yourself by any means. The perk reactivates when the exit gates are powered. So it's a one-time. It's almost like a one-time use perk, really. And I guess the whole gist of it is, if you're injured, you forcibly down yourself, and then you fully recover to basically heal yourself. So it's kind of like a self-healing mechanic. Um, it's pretty funny how it works. If the killer finds you, then you're screwed. But there are, things to stop that. What are your initial thoughts, Mr. Trouts? Because, like I said, it's a bit silly, like the rest of them.
Again, it's just these. It's just a bunch of meme perks. I think none of them are really supposed to be taken too seriously. This one probably has the most playability, like genuine playability, out of any of them, because you can, partner it up with perks like Boon Exponential. So if you get injured, you can sort of down and get yourself up to healthy again in 16 seconds. But other than that, it's not really meant to be taken too seriously. And you also get the haste effect, obviously, at the end. So it could actually, this could potentially see its way into some builds. Not many, but yeah, I think at the heart of it, it's supposed to be a meme perk, but there is some legitimate playability.
Yeah.
Excuse me, some legitimate playability that can be seen within it as well, I think.
I think in the coming days we're going to see some pretty funny stuff going on the PTB. And yeah, so overall, I know people have been waiting for this for a long time. I don't know if you expected. I don't know if this is a surprise to you, Mr. Trouts. I don't know if you expected him to have serious perks or for them to take this kind of
Yeah,
funny route. But
I
I
was
guess
sort
having
of expecting it.
having the character in the game is just pretty cool, nonetheless.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting it to be, like we've seen for the past couple of years, sort of serious or semi-serious perks. So it is a surprise that they've gone the opposite direction and just given us a nice fun chapter to just sort of mess around with, really, and not really take the game too seriously for once. So it is nice. It's sort of refreshing as well.
I assume you will be getting this.
Oh, on release day,
Yeah,
definitely.
100%. I'm the same. I'm definitely going to be getting this. And we're going to be running some really probably horrible funny games. Okay, so moving on to the more serious things, we have got the so there's a lot of stuff in the developer update. So like I said, it's probably going to be a long one, and we're probably going to cut some of the dialogue up. I'm not going to read all of it
Skim
because
through it,
yeah,
yeah.
we're going to just skim through it because your ears will bleed. I don't like listening to the sound of my own voice, so I should imagine it's probably the same for you guys. So the first thing we've got here is the survivor disconnect bots. So basically, behavior have kind of identified that when someone leaves your game, the chances of you getting out drastically go down, right? So to kind of counteract this and to counteract people leaving or disconnecting early, you get a bot in your game, which is an AI bot. So these were introduced into custom games, I think last year. I think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, around that time, yeah.
So they basically can do everything that a person can do. But obviously, I don't really know how good the AI bots are. I've not really, I've not really played any custom games with bots as surviving with bots with me, if you know what I mean. I've only ever played like killing them, and I don't know if they say, but I don't think it says what level kind of they'll be at. So, what are you thinking about the survivor disconnect bots?
Well, I know, I know survivor bots can be pretty hit or miss in terms of playability and how they actually perform in game. Um, I know since their release, they have had some updates on them throughout the months since their release. So they have been improving slowly, and hopefully now that they're sort of part of the main game and not just custom modes, we're going to see that improvement from them more regularly, and bug fixes and that kind of thing. But just as an addition to the base gameplay, I think it's brilliant. Obviously, we've all had it where Survivor goes down a bit early, or they decide they don't want to play the match and they just disconnect, and instantly it's sort of unless you're going against a pretty poor killer or an unlucky killer, game's over then, because the game's not balanced for a
Yeah,
3v1, it's more balanced for a 4v1. So to have that, even if it is just an AI, to have that little bit of an edge might help people escape matches they would otherwise just give up on instantly. So it is a nice change. Obviously, this doesn't help people that when people suicide on hook. It only helps when they disconnect, but I don't think there's any remedy for that really.
no,
So I think this is a really good course of action that the devs have obviously put a lot of time and effort in, and hopefully um, people will be able to play a lot more matches throughout because of it. So
yeah.
hopefully it works.
And I like the fact that it's kind of the way they've worded it is it's looking at people who have to leave the game, not people who are raging. I think to combat that further, it's kind of a slippery slope really because you want to try and prevent people from leaving games, and you do that by giving like time penalties and blood point losses and stuff like that. But then at the same time, you can't make it too harsh because there are a lot of people who disconnect for reasons that are without their without sorry with reasons and stuff like that. And I
Yeah,
guess the thing as well is DBD is not necessarily like it's not like other games where, like for example, Dota, Overwatch, where you're losing MMR when you lose a game. It's not like that. The main thing you're playing for is like blood points and going up in a rank. And losing one game is not exactly completely detrimental to that.
yeah, exactly. Like the MMR that you might gain or lose at the end of these matches is very like negligible, and it's not really coming into play too often in matches. So it's not really the end of the world in that regard. Um, but no, it is nice because I know this is a thing that the community has wanted for years, a very long time. And with recent updates as well, just thought of this actually. They actually recently or semi-recently made it so that perks work with some of these survivors in custom lobbies. So hopefully, the bots will be able to take over the players' builds as well
Yeah,
to give them a little bit more impact in the match.
I think that'd be very nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so moving on to successful report feedback. We won't talk about this too much, but essentially, it's a nice quality of life update that essentially, I think it was a trial or something like that. But I think it says in the next update you'll notice a window appear when logging in if one or more of your reports has led to a ban. This message will show you the date of the player ban and the reasoning for ban. Note that if a player gets banned and unbanned multiple times, you as the reporter will only get notified once per report you sent. So there's just like a little image of what that will look like. These feedback messages will apply to both temporary things like harassment as well as permanent bans for cheating. We are constantly improving our anti-cheat and security measures to prevent cheaters from playing to begin with, but we want to reassure you that cheaters are dealt with seriously whenever they manage to slip through. We're hoping that this feature will make reporting problematic in-game behaviour feel more purposefully, and worthwhile. We're very grateful to all of you who are investing your personal time and effort towards keeping our games safe and fun. Thank you for your help. So yeah, it's just a nice quality of life update. I can't remember I can't remember what it is. I think it might be Steam. When you ban when you report someone, they get banned. You get like a little notification. I think that's quite cool. It feels like kind of rewarding to ban people who are hateful, people who are racist, people who are cheating, stuff like that. Um, yeah, it's just a nice quality of life update, really.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people who might have come across hackers and stuff in the past have just sort of not really been bothered to report them because they don't feel like their reports go anywhere. Hopefully, this sort of incentivizes people to actually, maybe I will report this guy for hacking. Maybe I will report him for cheating, and actually seeing the validation of them acting on that might be incentive enough for people to do that more and hopefully get rid of hackers more um, streamlined pace, I guess. So yeah, I think it's a very good change and a really good one that some people have wanted for quite a while.
Yeah. So next we're going into some gameplay updates. So the first thing we've got is an Onryo change. So about a year ago, we got the Onryo, and yeah, she's I think she's a very interesting character because I think she's got some good perks, definitely. Although I think they were slightly nerfed, or one of them was slightly nerfed. I think it was Merciless Storm. I do forget. But yeah, I think depending on who you ask, if you would say is the Onryo a good killer or not, I think people would give you varying answers. So we'll just quickly go into the changes, and then I think Dr. Trouts will probably explain them because I think he's played more of the Onryo than I have. So when the Onryo is demanifested, she can she can project herself to any powered TV around the map. This would inflict nearby survivors with a stack of condemned in the process. We have made significant changes to this mechanic. So, projecting to a TV now applies 3/4 of a stack of condemned to all survivors not carrying a cursed tape. It was previously one stack. The time a TV is disabled after the Onryo projects to has been reduced to 70 seconds, was originally 100 seconds, and there are add-ons, that can alter this. The time a TV is disabled after a survivor removes the curse tape has been increased to 90 seconds, which was previously 60 seconds, and projecting now has a 15-second cooldown. Since there is no longer a range limit on the condemned effect, we need to limit how frequently this can happen. Combined, these changes make it much easier to spread condemned while using your power in a way that feels natural. So you're kind of losing one power. You're kind of losing, one of the benefit to gain another. So, would you like to explain what condemned is for anyone that doesn't know?
So the condemned status effect is unique to the Onryo. Basically, whenever you are, well, now whenever you teleport to a TV, survivors will gain condemned. They can lose it by getting the cursed tapes and putting it into TVs around the map, so there is counterplay to it. When you get maximum condemned, you will be able to be moriable by the Onryo without needing to be hooked.
It's the little white bar that goes around your character profile for anyone that wants to visualize that,
Yeah.
and it slowly builds up. Okay, so I think not talking about it too much, but it's quite a nice change because I guess one of the main gimmicks of the Onryo not only is teleporting but is being able to mori people, right? I think it kind of just speeds up that process.
Yeah, and you got to remember before this was a very underwhelming part of her kit. So to see that they've tried to standardize it by not having a range restriction on the televisions um, means that they're trying to make it a much more passive, much more like passive threat to survivors rather than in the wrong place at the wrong time sort of thing. So it's a very, I think it helps her condemned quite a lot. Um, they've also done a few other things like reduce the cooldown on televisions and this kind of thing to make it more streamlined and feel like you can actually use her power more, which is really good. And obviously, to counter that, they've made a cooldown on the teleport itself, whereas before you could spam teleport to all the TVs around the map. Now there's a 15-second cooldown for that, which I think is fair, considering that every teleport is now guaranteed to get some of that condemned stacks on survivors.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's just a consistency change. I think it helps people get more condemned, and I think it's just a very nice change. I know there's a lot of Omrio mains that don't like this, and that's completely understandable. Some play styles, some popular play styles, have sort of died because of these changes. But hopefully, glass half full, some new and more interesting ones might come out of these changes. We're yet to see. We've just got to
Excuse
wait
me.
and see how these play out really in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, if I just add one thing, I think it's one of the things I like about this change is it's not like hindering you if you don't teleport to like directly to survivors. It gives you the ability to not lose condemn stacks or to keep condemn stacks progression up whilst teleporting around the map. If you don't teleport, previously if you didn't teleport to where survivors were, you weren't gaining that bonus. And I know obviously you want to teleport to where the survivors are, but in some cases you're not always going to do that. You're going to teleport to where you think they are, not where you know
Yeah,
they are. So it's just making it a little bit more fair for people who teleport to TVs where there are no survivors.
yeah, exactly. And going on that point earlier about the passive build up, it just means that if you teleported to a TV earlier and you started chasing a survivor, that survivor is going to get condemned, and you're also chasing them. Which means if you're chasing them, they can't get rid of that condemned. So it's a bit of a what's the point?
Yeah.
Whereas now, because of the passive stuff, you can teleport to a television and chase a survivor. But because all the other survivors on the map have had their condemned increase over the match, that'll mean passive slowdown. Much like Pig's bear trap, people have got to take the bear trap off, otherwise they'll die. Now, because everyone gets it, you'll see a lot more people go for those televisions and that counterplay. Whereas before, the counterplay wasn't really used because condemned wasn't really a thing. You're going to see that kind of play used a lot more, and hopefully matches with the Omni will last a little bit longer. So we'll see how that
Sorry, excuse
goes.
me.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because you could get through most of a trial without building up a full like stack of condemned.
yeah,
That
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just increasing basically. It's not forcing counterplay almost. Okay,
Yeah.
so moving on to curse tapes. Curse tapes have become more dangerous as well. Though holding a curse tape may protect you from the condemned effect when the Onryo teleports, they come with their own risks. Getting hit with a basic attack while carrying a curse tape will apply one stack of condemned. Sorry, excuse me. When a survivor carrying a curse tape is hooked, all other survivors gain one stack of condemned and the tape is destroyed. Holding a curse tape no longer passively builds condemned, and curse tapes are now to be placed in any TV other than the one they are retrieved from. Taking a curse tape is now a strategic choice you will need to make. The protection it offers may be beneficial for you, but it is more punishing if you are caught carrying one. You'll actually want to you'll want to plan carefully and get rid of your tape if you fear that Onryo may be on her way. Now, I quite like these changes because it's obviously, like I said, it's to do with counterplay. So, when you, for example, like the example you mentioned earlier, the pig, when you're taking off one of her traps, you're kind of stationary for a second. So if she catches you, um, you're essentially going to die, right? Or you're going to go down. When you're carrying an Onryo tape, she could be chasing someone else, right? And you could just wander off to the map willy nilly, putting in the TV, and you're fine. It's just creating more options. It's just making her more options and survivors more vulnerable when they're carrying the tape, which is I quite like this change personally. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good change. It's very good. It sort of stems from those other changes we saw earlier in her kit that we read from. It just means that this part of her counterplay survivors are sort of being forced to do it more, which is a good thing. And yeah, like you said, it makes it a lot more dangerous for survivors because they're going to have to be running around to these TVs to turn them off. Unlike Pig, instead of having one set bear trap jigsaw box that gets the trap off your head, unless you're doing the ultra rare add-on, it's any TV, so it'll be a lot less slow down than Pigs. But because of how much you're teleporting throughout the map, there'll be a lot more times when it occurs. So it's like less time for survivors to get rid of it, but it'll happen more times. So it sort of all adds up. Yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah,
I really like these changes. Again, I know Onryo mains, or some of them at least, will absolutely hate these. But I'm purely going off um, what I'm reading. I haven't seen any gameplay at the moment. Obviously, if I see gameplay, and my opinions might change, but at the moment, I think these are welcome changes because other than some few very niche builds, Onryo has sort of been at the bottom of a lot of people's tier lists, and I think it was very overdue for some changes.
yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm quite looking forward to playing the Onryo after these changes because she was someone that I like playing, but thought she was always quite hard to get value out of, if you know what I mean. It's easy for survivors to kind of snowball against her. It feels like for me, if you make the wrong teleporting decisions, you kind of lose the game almost. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, no, definitely. If you teleport somewhere that survivors aren't, or you sort of overshoot a teleport, you don't get any condemned stacks and you lose a chase and all this kind of stuff. Whereas now, even if you do accidentally teleport somewhere else, you're at least getting those passive condemned stacks up, and it'll be a lot easier to try and stall the game out. Whereas before, condemned wasn't really an issue. Now, survivors will have to use tapes 2 or 3 times a match, I'm assuming. So yeah, we'll just
Yeah.
have to wait and see.
Okay, so moving on, demanifestation. We have now also made a few adjustments to the Onryo's demanifested state. The Onryo can no longer be stunned while demanifested. Wow, that's pretty good. Chases are prevented when demanifested, making it more difficult to keep track of the Onryo's position. And demanifesting now removes bloodlust, similar to other killers. So it's kind of a good thing, and like there's some good things there, some bad things there. Um, what kind of catches your eye there? Because
Um, well, obviously, Onryo is a bit of a stealth killer as well. She can hide her terror radius, so I think this sort of being able to stay out of chase helps her in that regard. The bit where Onryo can no longer be stunned when demanifested gives an actual or more of a use to demanifest during chase. People did it before to sort of break line of sight. Now you've got an even more reason to do it if you can't be stunned. So it helps her chase potential out. So now she's got map traversal, she's got a game slowdown, and she's got a bit of a chase power and a bit of a stealth power. So she's got a bit of everything going for her at the moment. Removing the bloodlust, even though it's a bit of a nerf, I think it's a good consistency change. I think if all the other killers or a lot of them lose their powers, lose bloodlust when using their powers, I think it's only fair that the Onryo does it as well.
yeah,
Um, but no, it's really nice. It seems like every bit of her kit is being addressed in one way or another. And I think this will be good for her chasing and sort of bit more of her stealth capabilities as well. So yeah, I think it's quite good.
sorry, just you might have to jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong. But when I play the Onryo, I don't know about you, I kind of like to demanifest and manifest when in a chase. Now that you lose the bloodlust when you demanifest, do you think people are less likely to kind of manifest and demanifest during a chase, or do you think they'll have to just time it better?
Um, I think you can still manifest and demanifest in a chase. You might have to time it a bit better so that you start to manifest as they stun you. So then by the time they stun you, it doesn't matter because you've already sort of dodged the stun, I guess, and then you can manifest and hit them. So maybe there is a bit more timing required and a bit more skill required to this killer. But I think you can. I think the goal is still to manifest and demanifest because you still get that lack of vision
Yeah,
on the survivor's part. So I think that will still be a part of the kit.
yeah. Okay, so add-ons. Lastly, we have done a balancing pass on the Onryo's add-ons, bringing her the highest and lowest performing add-ons closer in line with the rest of the options. Now,
I
I don't
I don't.
have the add-ons here. I don't know if they've
Yeah.
been released yet. Let me just see if
I've got a
no.
few pictures here, but they are. I don't have. Actually, wait, hang on. I can get the. Yeah, I do have them here, but I'll have to.
Yeah, just send them to me on Discord and I'll show them on there. So one
Uh,
second, guys. We're just gonna bring those up. Is
I have to do one at a time, though, unfortunately,
it's
because that's the
fine.
only way I can do it.
Okay, so here we are. We've got Raiko's watch. The watch that Raiko left her young son Yuichi, a distracting and constant reminder of one's impending doom. So basically, increases the invisibility duration while demanifested by 33%. And here we've got
Um, that was a. I'm just gonna quickly jump in as well and say that the Reiko's watch has been nerfed. It used to be 50%.
okay. Now we got videotape copy, a common add-on. A copy of the deadly videotape imprinted upon Sadako. Yeah, blah blah blah. Projection inflicts 0.5 stacks of condemned on survivors not carrying a tape. And TV is used for projection turn back on 15 seconds sooner. So that seems quite good for a non-rare perk, for a common perk. It
Yeah, I
just
mean it's Onryo's I guess meme add-on, and it is increased from what her meme add-on used to be. So her meme add-on before did not inflict any condemned on nearby survivors, and just gave her additional blood points score event. So at least it's actually got a little bit of a use now. So I think that's fine.
Okay, next we got Mother's Mirror. Increase the manifestation intermittent visibility duration by 2 seconds.
Before it was 2 seconds, so that hasn't been changed. Have you done the newspaper?
Old newspaper. Here we go. Increases the manifestation invisibility duration by 33%. Can't remember if I went over that one. This one.
No, that was the Reiko's. That was the Reiko's watch. Is that
Here? Mother's Mirror increases the manifestation intermittent. What? Oh, okay. I don't know about that one.
Is the watch and the maybe it's worded strangely, but it looks like the Reiko's watch and the old newspaper might be the same. It might be another nemesis situation where they've.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a bug. Okay, cabin sign decreases the time it takes for a TV to turn on after projection by 7 seconds.
At the moment, that is what did you say? That was cabin sign.
Yeah.
At the moment, it reduces the time it takes for a TV to turn on after projecting by 12 seconds. So that's the change there.
So some of these are older thing. So forgive us. These have been a bit muddled up. I don't know what's gone on here. Yuichi's fishing net. Survivors with at least 4 stacks of condemned suffer from blindness.
Previously, it was reduce the time it takes survivors to acquire another stack of condemned by minus 12% while holding a VHS tape.
Okay, and then we got Wellstone, which is decreases the time it takes for a TV to turn on after being turned off by a survivor by 9 seconds.
Previously, this was reduce the time it takes for a TV to turn on after having been turned off by a survivor by 6 seconds. So
we got sea-soaked cloth. While survivors are within 8 meters of a powered TV, they are afflicted with a blindness status effect. This effect lingers for 7 seconds after the TV is turned off.
What was the meter radius on that one? Sorry.
8 meters.
Yeah, and blindness. Yeah, that's the same. That hasn't really been changed.
Then we got clump of hair. Decreases the range at which the Onryo is visible while demanifested by 6 meters.
That is exactly the same. That has not seen any changes whatsoever.
Okay. Oh, so we're just going to go through some more. Manifestation afflicts survivors within 7 meters with a hindered status effect for 3 seconds.
What one was that? The telephone?
Yeah, the telephone, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the same.
VCR. All TVs play the projection effects when the Onryo projects to a TV.
Yeah, that's exactly the same. It's good to see that some of the well sort of balanced add-ons are staying the same, so that's fine.
Yeah, sorry, we're just trying to get through this. I don't know which ones have changed because it wasn't on the notes. I think this is just some screen snippets that we've got from in the game, so we're just kind of filtering through them now. Distorted photo, survivors witnessing a manifestation from within 16 meters will scream, and their auras are shown for 4 seconds.
Previously, they were only revealed by the screen for 4 seconds, so now you get the aura reading as well on top of that, so that's been buffed.
That's a good buff. We've got the well water. Increases the duration of the undetectable status effect by 2 seconds when manifesting by any means.
Was that the well water?
Yeah, well water.
I think that's exactly the same. Just reading through it. Oh no, yeah, that is exactly the same. Sorry, that is exactly the same.
Ring drawing. Condemned survivors spread condemned to other survivors who complete a healing action on them from the injured state to the healthy state.
Previously, it was only when they did a healing action of any times, so you could do it from the dying state to the injured state. I think the change they've made has made it so that slugging as this killer isn't as beneficial as it was before.
You don't get rewarded for slugging. Bloody fingernails increases the duration of projections bonus movement speed by 50%.
Yeah, that's exactly the same. That hasn't been changed.
Mother's comb. Turning off a TV will trigger a loud noise notification. Reveals the yellow aura of any TV that is turned off by any means.
Reveals the aura of any TV being turned off in yellow now.
Rickety pinwheel. While survivors are within 8 meters of a powered TV, they are afflicted with the oblivious status effect. This effect lingers for 7 seconds after the TV is turned off.
Which one was this? Sorry.
Rickety pinwheel.
Oblivious status effect. Yeah, that's exactly the same. That hasn't been changed. That's exactly the same.
Iridescent videotape. Survivors who take a tape must bring it to a specific TV. Only that TV's aura is shown to survivors carrying a tape. Well, that's definitely been changed. Because before her power was to take it to a specific TV anyway.
Previously, this was hitting a survivor within 8 seconds after manifesting turns on the last 4 TVs. So basically, this just undoes that sort of change / nerf to the whole VHS tape situation, and it also gets rid of some of those problematic builds earlier. And I think that's everything.
We got one
gone
more.
over the
Remote
full,
control. After using projection, the auras of survivors who are within 12 meters of a powered TV are revealed to you for 7 seconds.
16 meters, did you say?
12 meters.
That's been slightly changed. Now it used to be after using projection, the auras of survivors who are within 16 meters of a TV and carrying a VHS tape are revealed to you for 7 seconds. Okay, so that's had a bit of a
I'd say that's a
buff
buff.
then.
Yeah, a bit of a buff.
Yeah, it's a buff because they don't have the requirement now of having to have a VHS tape in hand.
Okay, so sorry about that, guys. This might have been a little bit confusing. We were just kind of going with it. I think what we're going to do is we'll probably create like a before this little segment of the perks, we'll probably create like a little time skip just in case anyone wants to go over it. Skip that part. So moving. Okay, so to summarize the Onryo, just quickly, I personally think she's a little bit better than what she used to be. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that they've normalized or made it so you can get condemned stacks a lot more frequently and a lot more passively definitely helps that part of her kit, which previously felt a bit undertuned. They've updated and buffed a few add-ons. Some might still need a few tweaks, but for now it's fine. They got rid of the problematic playstyles with slugging. They've tried to help her stealth / chase a little bit. I think these are really good changes. I think we might see a few more Onryos now.
Yep.
I'm not really sure where she sits.
Oh, we've just lost Dr. Trauts. His video camera has died. Give us one moment, please.
Be changed, and I think they've done a good job so far.
One sec, Dan. You might have to repeat that. You just disconnected for a second there.
What was the last thing you heard me say?
I can't remember.
Brilliant.
Well, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so she's.
I was going to say yes. She's a very good killer. Well, not a very good killer. She's
actually pretty rubbish.
She's pretty crap. Yeah, no. The changes are good. She was a very sort of low killer in a lot of people's tier lists. They've addressed most parts of her kit. Most importantly, they've addressed the problematic parts of her kit, like slugging and some of the problematic playstyles. Hopefully in the coming weeks and months, we'll be able to see where she sort of has shifted in the grander scheme of things when it comes to the tier list of the game, like where killers normally go. But no, I think the heads and tails of it are that this is a welcome change, and hopefully we see more like this from devs in the future for killers that need reworks and touch-ups.
Yeah, nothing much to add there. It'll be nice to see how people make of her in the PTB and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of stays and goes into live. Or are these going directly into live, Dan? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, this is the PTB, so things can still change. I think the vast majority of it will stay the same. If we do see changes, it'll be tiny tweaks to numbers. But I think this is what's going to be in the game more or less. So
yeah,
I think these are fine.
So moving on, hook grabs. We've all been in this situation before. A survivor runs towards their hooked friend, but the killer is nearby, so you can both play a thrilling game of unhooked chicken. So basically, it's kind of stopping you from being able to be grabbed while unhooking. because it kind of leads to face camping and awkward kind of gameplay where kind of people are swarming around the hook trying to get their friend off, and the killer has potential to get value from being able to grab someone. They're changing it, so they're removing grabs, and it basically means that you can essentially get your friend off the hook without getting grabbed, but you can still die for it. So so they can still hit you before you go for the hook, and then once you've unhooked, they can hit you afterwards. It just stops the killer from being able to snowball by face camping, because if they grab you off the hook, then your friend doesn't get off, and you're going to go on a hook. What do you think of this, Mr. Trauts?
I think it's a very overdue change, long overdue. This is something that a lot of people have wanted to sort of be gotten rid of for a long time. It's sort of like the old hatch standoff where you can't really do anything.
Oh, sorry.
Whereas now it sort of helps with the flow of the gameplay as well. Because at the end of the day, the game is about downing survivors, hooking them, going on to the next. It's not really about, are you going to unhook? Are you not going to unhook? Oh, because of latency or whatever, I've got a cheesy grab and now you're on the hook as well.
Yeah.
It also helps to prevent camping, because if someone's face camping and then at the last second someone tries to save, they might be able to grab them and then down the person that's saving, and then they've got two people on the hook now, whereas before they only had one. So it sort of prevents camping a little bit. I just think it's a really good change. I think it's very good.
I agree with you. I think it prevents kind of crappy play styles that some people take. Because there are certain games where, I mean, I've had it I'm not the best killer. I've had it before where you've been absolutely stomped by the survivors, and you down one person and you're just camping them, trying to get value from a bad game. So I think it's almost fairer for survivors. I mean, I don't think we've kind of heard any negatives about this. I think this is a very positive change. Um, but it's like that. It's like it was said before. If it's a risk thing. If you want to save your friend, you're gonna go down for it. That's cool. At least your friend's still getting off.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so moving on to brand new part. In recent months, brand new parts have once again become a hot topic for discussion. On their own, they can shave quite a bit of time from a generator, but this is compounded when multiple survivors bring one to a trial. We realise that this can be frustrating to killers to face, and have decided to rework this add-on. Sorry, excuse me. When a brand new part is installed, you will face a difficult skill check. Upon succeeding the skill check, the generator's required charges are reduced by 10, and the add-on is consumed. In terms of time saved, the updated brand new part will save 10 seconds compared to the previous 22.5 seconds. That's a lot of time off. As this lowers the required charges for the effector generator, any regression perks will apply. Regression based on the generator's total charges will have their effectiveness slightly reduced. So I think the one thing I like about this, I think it's kind of cool how they made it interactive with regression perks. That's the one thing I like about it. I think the one thing that I don't like about it is I think they might have nerfed it a little bit too much, because, in my opinion, in casual play, maybe kind of around my rank, you don't see a lot of people taking 4 brand new parts. I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't know if you've ever seen that. So I feel like it's a little bit too harsh. I think it might put people
Um,
off by taking it. I don't know.
it's a bit of a weird one, because it's sort of like, even though people might not have taken 4 brand new parts in a Swift squad, there was always the potential there, and I've been against it once or twice when that's been the case. And I think this is more of, they don't want the potential to be there. But like you say, that sort of harms the sort of the casual experience of the game. I think it's a fine change, because anything to do with generator progression obviously needs to be really careful with, because that's the main object of the game. Um, so I think this is fine. Like you say, they've made it more interactable with certain perks. So it's nice that they've sort of thought about that and gone that route. I think it will still be a useful item, definitely, but it just won't be as, not problematic, but it won't be as prominent as it was before in certain matches.
Yeah,
I think you can still get value out of this as a solo player, though. I think it's still going to be a good add-on.
it will be in. I think someone we'll probably do this, but it'll be nice to see a comparison, like the previous effect, the new effect, because it feels like 12.5 seconds is a lot, but then I guess as well, you lose 10 seconds, but if you've got three people on the gen, does it really matter that much? Those kind of things.
Exactly, and 10 seconds is quite a lot of time, right? And even though 10, 12 seconds have been shaved off already, how strong do we want these add-ons to be? I mean, granted, brand new pot's always sort of been a bit of an issue since the game's release. Obviously not now, because it's had several nerfs in the past. I think it's in a healthy spot though. Maybe bump the numbers or the numbers up a little bit, but more or less, I think this is a fine add-on. It's a strong add-on, but I don't think it's overtuned by any means.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's all right. I kind of understand why they're doing it. Okay, so moving on. So there are a lot of balance changes when it comes to the perks for both killers and survivors. So we'll go over them and talk about them as best we can. But obviously, these, just to clarify, these are going into the PTB. They're not guaranteed changes. They're not definitely going into live. So these are just for the PTB. So the first one we've got here is Coup de Grace. Activating when generators are powered means this perk can only activate up to 5 times per match. Extended lunges can surely make a difference, but it's difficult to benefit from them when the perk is limited. So what they have done is to help with it, come into play more often. Coup de Grace will now gain 2 tokens whenever a generator is powered. Was originally 1. So, I mean, I think so. The first thing I'll say is, Trauts has essentially been recording all the statistics for his Survivor games. So I think, you've done what is it, 150, 140 Survivor games so far?
About 150, I think, just shy of 150. Yeah.
And we've only, I think, well, you've only seen Coup de Grace twice, I think it is.
Yeah,
and
so far twice.
One of them was on the twins. So I think it's a welcome little buff, and it's kind of good for M1 killers. And I could see this kind of working with play with your food, almost. Extended lunge range and reduced cooldown. I'd like to see how that interacts. But I don't think it makes the perk good, and I don't think it will see that much more use. And I think we were talking about this before. I think if they really wanted to make this perk good, they'd have to make it a passive permanent almost, kind of like 1 gen equals 5% bonus.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll be one route to go down to sort of make the perk a little bit more useful. Because at the moment, you can still get good use out of this perk, and you can end chases quickly. But the issue is, like you've sort of mentioned prior, you sort of need to be losing the game, or you need to let the game sway a bit more in the survivor's favor to get any sort of real value out of this perk. And then even on top of that, it's sort of dependent on the killer that you're playing. If you're playing Blight, for example, you might really not get much use out of this because I think lunge attacks outside of rushes don't count. Whereas Deathslinger might get a lot of use out of this because pretty much all of his hits are M1s. So, and also if you're chasing someone and the gem pops, you might accidentally use a token. Granted, now that you get 2, that's not so much of an issue, but it's still a possibility. I think a passive increase would definitely do this perk justice, but as it is for now, the perk's essentially doubled in its efficiency because you get double the amount of tokens. So I think we might see a few more Coup de Graces, but I think at the heart of it, there will always be better perks to bring.
Do you think though that people would be more incentivized to take it if it was like a flat 5, like not reliant on gens? Because like you said before, it's relying on you losing the game right to get value out of it. At the moment, I feel like there are perks that you want to use to help you snowball where you don't have to be losing the game to get value. So if it was like a flat 10% or a flat 5%, do you think you'd be more inclined to take it, or do you think it's something that doesn't really change it?
I think I would be, but the numbers would have to be right because if they wouldn't do it too much, because otherwise it'd be overpowered, because it is a strong effect that it gives. But if you do it too low, like 5%, 4%, whatever,
Yeah.
it might end up like Fire Up, the Nightmares perk, where essentially it's a nice idea in theory, but the values are too low that you can't get any value out of it. And even then, though, if it was good, you'd only use it on a few killers. But I think I would be more if that was balanced and good enough to bring on its own, without being too weak or too strong, then I think that would incentivize me to use it more, because I don't have to give up generators to get the perk to activate. And if I win with no generators completed or one generator completed, the perk doesn't activate at all. So
Yeah.
I think it'd allow people to get a bit more use out of it. You wouldn't be able to get as fancy a tricks out as you do now, because obviously you get quite a big increase in range at the moment. But it'd be more of a passive increase. So I think it would be better. But as
Just
it stands, we might see a little bit more of it at the moment, and it's okay.
just on a side note, do you think that it's gonna mean like any? Because I mean, do you think it will create like any more awkward interactions with like vaults and pallets, or do you think that's kind of because I think we've been seeing it a lot more of like I know that I see it quite a lot. I get bloody hit through pallets and vaults all the time. Do you think it will lead to
Um,
like any awkward interactions, or
at
do you
well,
think
at the
it's
moment, it's the same Coupe de Grace,
yeah?
so it's essentially the same perk. It might not lead to any more. It'll probably keep the same amount, because it's the fundamentals of the perk are still there. You might see it more often because there's more charges, but again, the perk's overall usage isn't really going to drastically increase that much from changes like this.
I guess that's why you would probably want to keep the value the same, not like increase it or decrease it anymore.
Yeah,
They're probably quite content with the value it's at. It's just about using it, if you get what I mean.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where we have to probably test it in the PTB to kind of see if it's worth running or see if it's any better than it previously was.
Yeah.
So moving on to claustrophobia. So this this perk also activates when a generator is powered. Since it only blocks vaults with locations within 32 meters of the completed generator, it's very likely that the perk won't come into play unless you happen to be chasing a survivor nearby. We are removing the range restriction from claustrophobia. Survivors will want to react quickly and find a pallet instead of a window when this perk is activated. So it's making the perk essentially map wide. I think we said before, or you said to me before this, you don't. It only interacts with vaults, right? It doesn't interact with pallets. But it
Yeah.
means that you get more value from this perk because I felt like this was a very underwhelming perk as it stands. So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those perks. I don't even think I've seen it once in my games so far. And obviously, I'm using that as a rough guide, because my stats by no means reflect the stats of the game as a whole. But I haven't really seen this perk used that much at all. Now, without the range restriction, it's at least got a decent amount of usage. But again, the same sort of issue with Coupe de Grace. You sort of got to lose generators to get any value out of this perk, and even then, you're sort
yeah.
of on a time limit. You don't know when the gen's going to pop, and if you're not in chase when that gen pops, then you don't get any value out of it, regardless of range limit. So this buff isn't bringing it up to S tier or A tier, but it's definitely a lot more usable in a lot more situations now.
And it only really feels applicable to survivors when they're being chased, right? It says here like survivors will want to react quickly and find a pallet instead of a window, but that's only reflective of the survivor that's being chased. So it's kind of like it's kind of forcing one survivor to like have to find a pallet.
Exactly, and if they're already at a pallet loop and looping you around a pallet, then you're not going to get any value out of this. It will still remain a situational perk. Probably won't make its way into too many builds. It might bring its way into a few niche ones,
Yeah.
but as of now, you probably still won't see this perk that much. But it's at least somewhat usable now in a
Oh
usable
yeah,
state.
it's a nice buff. It's not meta defining. It's probably not even up there. Probably not even worth running. But yeah, it's a nice little buff. Okay, so Hangman's Trick. So Hangman's Trick here finds itself in a tricky spot. Its range is fairly small given that the hooks are very common. However, increasing the range any further would cause it to reveal auras across nearly the entire map. So what they've done is they've changed it to a Scourge Hook Hangman's Trick. This perk now reveals the auras of survivors within 8, 9, 10 meters of a Scourge Hook when a survivor is being carried. So I think what we said on this is you'd only really want to use this if you are running other Scourge Hook perks.
Yes, I mean, there's not really any value out of it if you're sort of just running it on its own. It's a little bit of aura reading, but not much. I kind of meant to semi counter the saboteur builds that people might run. But as its own, it's nice that it's been changed to a Scourge Hook. You know, we can always do with more Scourge Hooks, but it's the only Scourge Hook where if you're hooked on a Scourge Hook, there's no actual benefit. I think it needs to be buffed a bit more beyond this. I don't think anyone's going to run it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting change, one that probably will still see it be at probably the bottom of all killer perks, probably bottom 5 or 10 still.
Yeah. I don't think this will really increase the amount we see it, to be fair. I think this is one of those things as well where you'll probably have to look at the PTB, kind of gauge how effective it is in effect. Just by reading, you can't really gauge too much about how good it is, but we can probably suggest that it's probably not going to be taken a
And
whole lot.
yeah, also it's some people might see this as a bit of a nerf because you're losing that hooks like regenerating faster. You're losing that aspect of the perk, and people might say, yeah, but 10 meters is 10 meters is a pretty big area. What people might not realize is it is a big area, but it's completely reliant on RNG, and that perks that are completely reliant on RNG like this aren't really good, you know.
Yeah,
So and the limited or reading and info that you get from it can always be seen from other similar perks, awakened awareness, for example. So it's either outmatched or too niche to be able to fit into a perk slot. Because remember, you only get 4, and it's supposed to do a definitive role. If you're running this, you're already running another Scourge Hook, so you've got 3 perks left. Are you really going to run Scourge Hook Hangman's Trick in this state? Probably not.
exactly. And just to gauge how far 10 meters is, the max range of Deathslinger is 18 meters, so it's
Yeah.
almost half of that. So it's not particularly too far. So I think we'll move on. Territorial Imperative. Territorial Imperative's short aura reading duration can make it easy to miss. Add on that the fairly large distance requirement, and it quickly becomes very tricky to use effectively. So what they've done is they've increased the duration of the aura to 4, 5, and 6 seconds, was originally a flat 3. We've also lowered the distance the killer must be from the basement entrance to 24 meters, was originally 32. To give survivors an opportunity to sneak in for a rescue, we've increased the cooldown to 45 seconds. So a very interesting kind of basement perk that gives you aura reading. I think the first thing that I kind of picked up on about this perk in its original form was that 3 seconds is not a lot of time, which is why I'm kind of glad they buffed it to 6 seconds. I mean, I don't think it's the most used perk, but when you think about it, really, say for example, you're hooking a survivor, are you actually going to be able to see the aura reading in 3 seconds? Probably not. So it's nice to
Yeah.
say that it's gone up to 6 seconds. But overall, I don't think it changes too much. It's just a nice little buff to a perk that's used very situationally.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of adding on to what you've said already, it's still going to be very low in terms of pick rate. It just helps basement builds out more. Not that there are many, but if you do, now this might be a contender to actually use for a basement perk. Yeah, effectively doubling its aura. You don't really get a loud noise notification. Just the perk icon itself will sort of light up and the timer will go down. So not only do you get more aura reading, but like you said, 3 seconds you might not notice it. 6 seconds you might actually see, oh, the perk's activated. I'll go back. So you might get a little bit of value there. The downside being it's over doubled its cooldown from 20 seconds to 45 seconds. It's like it's made a perk that's already niche even more less appealing
Yeah,
to run. The only saving grace really is the 32-meter terror radius, which obviously is the standard killer. The 32-meter distance needed for this perk to activate, even to begin with, which is a standard killer's terror radius, has been reduced to 24 meters. So that's a nice change. All in all, the buffs are nice on this perk. It probably needs a rework, to be honest.
Yeah, it's only really
But
used for basement challenges, isn't it? Really.
yeah, and even then, like the cooldown now, especially, it's I don't think you'll really see this in basement builds, maybe,
Yeah.
but that's more of a lack of basement perks than it is this perk shining in that scenario.
But
So
I think it's good though because I mean I don't like basement builds. I think killers who do that are just ugh. So yeah, I think there's definitely a reason why there's not a lot of basement perks.
yeah, true, definitely.
Okay, so moving on to Remember Me. This perk can help turn a match around towards the end, but is currently not as effective as they'd like it to be. Each time your obsession loses a health state, gain a token. Each token increases the opening time of the exit gates by 6 seconds, up to a maximum of 12, 18, and 24 seconds, was originally 4 seconds per token for a maximum of 8, 12, and 16 seconds. So, yeah, it's very interesting, this, because it's a very big buff when it comes to time, 8 seconds overall, at level, I think it's at all levels, I can't find the perk. 4, 6, and 8 seconds. So 8 seconds at level 3. The question I have for you, Dr. Trauts, is would you run this over perks like No Way Out and Crowd Control?
I probably would never run this over No Way Out because No Way Out is just superior because the maximum time uh, delay you can get from this perk, as it says, is 24 seconds, and even then, it doesn't affect every survivor. It doesn't affect the obsession. No Way Out. Granted, you might need to do a little bit more to get the stacks of No Way Out, but you get a whole minute if you get all those stacks. So
Yeah.
it's just a better end game perk. The question now, I think, would more be, would you use this as well as No Way Out? And I think now there's actually somewhat of a legitimate reason to do that if you want to do an end game build. Because the addition of 8 seconds at the exit gate might not seem much to many people, but there's been so many times as killer where I've been running back and forth to the exit gates, and they've just managed to get it open in front of my face by the time I get there. So I think those 8 seconds can be pretty vital. And obviously now as well, if you do pair up No Way Out with Remember Me, if you've got max stacks on both perks and you aren't the obsession, it can be 104 seconds for survivors to open gates. So it's
That's a
definitely
long
a
time.
real contender. Yeah, definitely. It's a really
Yeah.
it's not going to be meta, and in endgame builds, it's not going to be the first thing you pick. But in endgame builds, it might be the second or third choice. So I think we might see a few more of these perks, but probably not a substantial amount more. Remember Me.
Yeah, it's just nice to use it in combination with other exit gates perk. Um, the problem I have with it though is I don't think running endgame perks is necessarily beneficial for winning the trial. This is just my opinion. You might disagree with me. You guys watching might disagree with me, but I don't think it's good to run just endgame perks or to focus on just endgame perks because I think I've said this before in previous podcasts. DBD is all about is about snowballing, right? It's about little things that help you like accumulate bigger wins, right? So snowballing it too late in the game makes it a lot harder. So if you're running No Way Out and Remember Me, you've got 104 seconds on the exit gate, but is that enough to be able to, say for example, 4 of them alive to kill all 4 of them? Now it would be really good if you've killed someone or killed like 1 or 2 people in the game, but it makes it a lot harder to kill 1 or 2 people when you've only got 2 perk slots available for the main game. Say for example you are running No Way Out and Remember Me. I think it makes the game itself a little bit harder, but then at the same time, if if you're a newer killer, then and you're struggling in the main game, it might give you more time to, you know, try and get people at the end. So it's like a win and a loss, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's definitely a put all your eggs in one basket sort of play style. It's not one that I normally do very often. I do it sometimes just for a bit of variety, but no, it's definitely not one that I sort of lean to. But it does make those types of people that enjoy that game mode, that play style rather. It does make it a little bit more viable. But again, if you want to win, you're obviously not really going to do an end game build. You're probably going to do something else.
Could you imagine
Um,
a Skull Merchant free gen plus this?
absolutely awful. No,
Uh,
thank you. But
that
no.
sounds delicious. Mm.
To summarize it though, it's a good buff for a niche perk for a niche play style, basically. But it's good. It's a buff. It's good. You might see it a little bit more.
Yeah, and don't hit the obsession because I do that all the time, especially with Save the Best for Last.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about that because I'm really bad. So the next one is Hex Crowd Control. Having a window block behind a survivor after they vault, it can come in handy in certain circumstances, but in many cases, the survivor can simply outlast the entity blocker. This doesn't create much pressure on the survivors to find and cleanse the Hex totem. They're increasing the duration of entity blockers caused by Hex crowd control to 40, 50, 60 seconds, was originally 10, 12, 14 seconds. That is a long time. So it's essentially incentivizing you to cleanse the bloody totem because
Yeah.
60 seconds is a long time. Essentially, by increasing the time limit to a minute at tier 3, is essentially forcing a survivor who's being chased to go find another loop or to find something else, because at 14 seconds, like the in the developer notes it says, you can just outlast that, right? Especially with the introduction of perks like made for this. If you're in the injured state, it's quite easy to loop someone for 14 seconds, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even if the loop that you're on is a bit too small, you just run, find another loop, and it's not a problem. And then you run back, and by the time you run back, it's not blocked anymore. So that there's, I think, once again referencing those stats earlier, I don't think I've seen a single crowd control.
No, you haven't.
Um, and people might say, yeah, a 46-second increase is massive, and it is massive. But what people fail to realize is, or might fail to realize, is previously, if you want, oh, I want to block windows in a chase, you just use bamboozle every single time.
Yeah, it's
People would
definitely
not
outclassed by
even,
bamboozle. Yeah.
yeah, it's completely outclassed. Whereas now, it's not one or the other. I don't think is outclassed necessarily. Granted, the effects of crowd control are stronger, but it is a hex, meaning high risk, high reward. Survivors can destroy it and get rid of it straight away, whereas bamboozle is for the whole match. So I think now there might actually be a bit of a conversation to be had on, all right, do I bring crowd control? Do I bring bamboozle? So I think it's brought it up to scratch with its sort of partnering perk, I guess you could say. So no, I think this is a very welcome change. 60 seconds might be too much. A few people might be a bit mad with that. I can see them potentially nerfing it down to 45 seconds off PTB onto live.
Yeah.
Potentially, but right now 60 seconds. I think it's a fine change. It's a hex perk that is needed love since release, and I'm really glad that they're finally giving it to it.
Yeah, I definitely think it gives people more options as well. But I also agree with you. I think it will go down to potentially like 45, 40 seconds post PTB. But it's one of those things where we have to wait out. We have to wait and see, and we have to find out. Playing the PTB ourselves. So the last one we've got is Trail of Torment. Trail of Torment allows the killer to hide their terror radius and sneak up on survivors. Since it disables the next time a survivor loses a health state, there often isn't much pressure on the survivor to venture over and stop the generator from regressing. To make this perk more threatening, Trail of Torment will now only deactivate when the affected generator stops regressing, not when a health state is lost. So essentially what they've done with this perk is they've made it so that before you wouldn't, if you're a survivor, you wouldn't even consider going near the gen. You would just wait till someone gets slugged, and then he'd have a terror radius again. So, what do you think of this? I think that it's a good change actually, because it's harder for him to lose the undetectable status. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain lag there. If you'd like to explain a bit more about this, Dr. Trauts, I'm currently having a
Yeah,
bit of
it just makes the perk a lot more consistent, right, when you're using it. Because obviously before you could lose it through the generator regressing to 0, or obviously just stops regressing. So whether that is regressing to 0 or survivors start working on it again, and they could also lose it when they lose a health state. Now, with them getting rid of one of those issues, it makes survivors a lot more sort of determined to actually go over and start regressing that generator. Additionally, it sort of means that, oh, this generator's on 90% or something. You might get a lot more use out of it now. Whereas before, if you hit someone and the survivors completed the generator, you might not know that they've started working on it again. So now that you stop being undetectable, you can go, oh wow, okay, that generator that wasn't 90%, I'm no longer undetectable. I know the survivors are working on it again. So now you can see multiple uses out of this perk that might have just been a good chase slash stealth perk has got very small tracking capabilities, very small, obviously, but still present, still there.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good change to a perk. We might see it a little bit more. Um, Again, like a lot of these changes, this isn't going to be meta, and it is going to be sort of killer and map dependent. I'm imagining, just because functionally it's the same perk, it's just been buffed, right? So
Yeah, it's
it's
just
going to
like
work quite a lot as it did before.
it's kind of just reducing the counterplay to it as well.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's also, in my opinion, I think it'd be quite good in free gen situations as well.
Almost definitely. Yeah.
Because the killer is just basically incentivized to loop back to the gen that was kicked. Because the only way that survivors can really counter it is either to let it run to zero or to work on it. So it's and having that no terror radius means it's even more of a threat. But like we said, it's still very situational, map and build dependent, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the survivor perks. Now we've got quite a few survivor perks here. Just quickly just to revert back on what I said. All of those killer perks are kind of perks that are kind of trash at the moment. Would you agree?
Well, all of these survivor
No,
perks.
sorry, all of the killer perks that they've changed. It
Uh, they're either trash or niche, right? They're
Yeah,
either
I think overall it's probably fair to say that
pretty poor. Yeah.
they've probably got the perks that are at the bottom, and they're just trying to push them up a bit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
so yeah, back onto survivor perks. So we have got prove thyself. So prove thyself grants a repair speed bonus based on the survivors that are within a small range of the generator, um, allowing survivors to negate the penalty for working on a generator simultaneously. Though it's just as efficient to work on separate generators, there's still tremendous value in being able to finish a specific generator very quickly through co-op repairs. To bring this perk in line with other options, we are reducing the repair speed bonus to 6, 8, 10% per nearby survivor. Sorry, it was originally 15%, and they've also removed the blood point bonus for co-op repairs. Now, this makes me very sad because I use Prove Thyself all the time.
Yeah. The change to the repair speed is a bit of a heavy blow. We've seen a lot of prove thyself in my stats. I've seen it in more or less one in every four survivors. So I see it at least once a game, once every 2 games on average. It's a very meta defining perk. Um, I think the reduction from 15 to 10% means that it's not going to be as strong. And but clearly by the nerf of brand new part earlier, uh, generator times is something that they're still a little bit concerned about with these nerfs. But even with that, I think a flat 10% just by having survivors near you will still mean that this perk is seen in the general
Yeah,
gameplay of the game, especially because it's from Dwight, who is a free character, but also other perks that give you passive repair speed increase. Resilience is 9%, but it requires you to be injured. Overzealous is, I think, 5 and then 10%, depending if you uh, uh, get rid of a totem or a hex totem. But obviously, there's only 5 of those on a map. This is quite an easy requirement to get for those repair speed bonuses. So I think this is just to try and bring it a bit more in line with those other repair speed perks. So I think it's good. I think it's a very good change. And
sorry.
the blood point change as well, getting rid of the blood points. Although it is a bit annoying because as Doctor said earlier, we do love getting extra blood points. I think people might have been able to see this coming from a little while ago. Obviously, previously they've got rid of the blood point rewards from barbecue and chili, and we're going to live forever. Now they're getting rid of it. Prove thyself. And if this is anything to go by, I'm assuming in the next updates or mid chapters down the line, we can probably see other perks that give blood points be taken away as well. The only two that really come to mind that are left are Distressing and Hextral of the Hunt. So maybe their and Beast of Prey, of course. So maybe their blood point incentives will be gotten rid of in the future as well, if this is anything to go by. But just from Prove Thyself, it's still going to be a perk that people use. It's just not going to be as strong.
I think it will still lurk around in the meta. I mean, from your statistics, you've seen it. I think what 1 out of every 4 survivor takes this perk.
Yeah, roughly.
So I think it will still float around that number. But yeah, it is very good. I think Behavior want to maybe make games a bit slower, because it does feel like survivors can do gens really, really fast. And maybe, by reducing this, it could also be kind of an incentive for people to do less co-op fixing as well, doing gens independently. But obviously that might not be the case, so that's just kind of a wait and see kind of thing. But yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think they need to buff other gem speed repair bonus perks, in my opinion, or make new ones, but they can't make it too much. So that's just my opinion. I feel like this perk dominated the what it was trying to do. Right, you would never run another gen speed repair bonus over this perk. So hopefully it creates some diversity in what people use.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to get some sort of baseline. Obviously, previously buffing Overzealous, now nerfing Prove Thyself. There's definitely a fine line that they're trying to get all these perks roughly around the same sort of criteria. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think.
Yeah. And they might change it back. Who knows?
This is only a PTB after all.
Yeah, it just depends on the feedback. Okay, so moving on to Blast Mine. Few things are more crushing than installing Blast Mine on a generator only for the killer to ignore it, so that your trap expires. We've increased the duration of Blast Mine to 100, 110, and 120 seconds. Was originally 35, 40, and 45, so that's a 75-second increase at tier 3. So yeah, it's a nice and welcome change, because I mean previously they've nerfed this perk into the ground, to the point where no one really takes it. And it's nice to see that the killer can't really outlast it. Otherwise, if they do try to outlast it, they're probably going to lose too much progression in their game. 75 seconds is quite a long time.
Yeah, it just means you're gonna actually see this perk be used more in games. I think it's sort of compensating for the nerf that it had a few patches ago, where previously, if you activated Blast Mine on a generator and the killer didn't kick it, you'd get your Blast Mine back straight away, and you could just put it on the generator straight away or put it on a different generator. Then they changed it so that you have to be a bit more tactical with how you used it, and if the killer didn't kick it, you lost your Blast Mine. You had to sort of do all the repairs again to earn it back and try again. So this is just trying to make a bit of middle ground, making it a bit longer. So hopefully people, because it's a fun perk, so hopefully
Yeah.
people might be a bit more incentivized to use it if they were otherwise dissuaded from it from the previous nerfs. So I think it's a good buff, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a nice buff, but I think it still kind of maintains its position as like a fun/challenge perk.
Definitely.
I don't see people going out of their way to run this as part of a designed or constructed build to really win games. It's just to have a bit of fun, kind of mess with the killer kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely. The maximum this slows the killer down is a few seconds, and I know some people like to complete the generator in the killer's face when it blows up and stuff. But realistically, it's for fun. It's a fun perk. It's not meta defining by any means, and it sort of will remain that way. The sort of core of the perk is more fun, and I think that's fine. I think it's fine to have fun perks in the game,
Yeah.
and by increasing the active time, they're making it more fun. So they're making this fun perk more fun, or the ability to have more fun with it. And yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so moving on to Wiretap. Wiretap is in a similar position to Blastmine, but they wanted to make the opportunity to standardize how these sorts of perks work. So they've increased the duration of Wiretap to 100, 110, and 120 seconds. Was originally 60, 70, 80 seconds, and they've also normalized the activation requirements and text descriptions between Blastmine and Wiretap, meaning that Wiretap will now activate after 50% worth of generator repairs, and originally was 33%. So they've made it essentially so that both Wiretap and Blastmine have the same duration and the same activation percentage. So I think that's quite nice. It's a nice consistency thing. They kind of do a similar thing, or they are a similar type of perk, but they do different things. So it's nice to see that they have the same time and the same amount of activation cost.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know a lot of people, not everyone, but a few people do run these perks in sort of tandem because they are quite similar in how they activate and work and so forth. It's just purely, I think, a consistency change. It's a good change. It's a good change. You just because wiretap is a it's a very strong perk, so they kind of want it to maybe repair a bit longer, 17% longer, decent. And sort of to compensate for that, they've increased it by 40 seconds. So it's a good change. It fits in line, like you say, with Blast Mine. There's nothing more to talk about really about the change. I think people that ran wiretap before will still run wiretap. I think it's still a good perk to use. I don't think anything will change in that department. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good
I think one
change.
thing just to comment on it is it's kind of a Wiretap feels like a solo queue kind of um, perk. Like you don't really need to run this if you've kind of got comms going on. I don't think. So that's what I personally think kind of limits its pick rate. That's just my opinion. I think people might disagree with that. Um, but yeah, I don't think it will see much change. Probably that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I think this is a definite. I think it can still get value in a Swift squad, but I think you're going to get more value out of it from a solo point of view. Because granted, it doesn't really do anything against stealth killers. But if no one's being chased, people might be able to say, "Hey, the killer's over here. Hey, the killer's going in your direction." You don't know that if you're solo, so it's
Yeah.
just a bit of extra info that solos kind of need. So it's a it's a good perk.
Okay, so moving on to Saboteur. So the hook breaking heroes out there will know that even a fraction of a second can make a difference between sabotaging the hook and getting hit. When you swing in for the save, you want to get the job done as quickly as possible. So what they've done is they have reduced the time it takes to sabotage a hook without a toolbox to 2.3 seconds. Was originally 2.5 seconds, and they have also adjusted the cooldown of the perk to 70, 65, and 60 seconds. Originally was 90, 75, and 60, so that tier 1 and tier 2 versions of the perk can be used more frequently. My guess is that they're probably not seeing anyone use it at all at tier 1 and 2, which is probably why they've done that, although I doubt that would change. So yeah, I think this is a nice little change. I guess. So sorry, just for reference, I think a successful killer attack is 2.7 seconds, right, on
Yeah,
cooldown.
yeah,
So it basically guarantees a sabotage if you get hit or if someone else gets hit, unless they have saved the best for last. I think. I think.
yeah. I think if save the best for last, and I don't know how many stacks they need. Um, they'll be able to get both hits, but obviously if they have a toolbox or a Alex's toolbox, that obviously changes things as well. So it's all relative. But without save the best for last and without toolboxes, you should be able to sabotage and you have a bit more time to run away. Because previously, if you hit someone and they sabotage, but just after the sabotage animation, you can hit again. So even though they sabotage the hook, you can down them. Now you've got a little bit more time to run away. This might be sort of in tandem with the Hangman Tricks changes that we saw previously, because we do know that sabotage has sort of been developed into a sort of anti-scourge hook thing. The only issue is no one's going to
Yeah.
run Hangman's Trick, but additionally, no one's really going to run Saboteur, so it's sort of a null thing. It's a very niche change to a niche perk. It's one that probably I think it's welcome. I think it's fine. It's a gameplay style that we haven't really seen popular in the game for many years. And obviously, you can see which perks are Scourge hooks with Saboteur.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely in tandem with the two. But I don't think we'll see this played that much.
It's just a lot nicer for people who want to do a bit of trolling. I guess the problem is that, you know, fundamentally you can kind of do this without the perk. You can just do it with a toolbox. Now, I don't have the exact time it takes a toolbox to sabotage. I don't
I
think
think
we
it's
could.
roughly 2.5, 3 seconds, roughly.
Roughly 2.5 3 seconds. So it kind of feels like if you're kind of wasting a perk slot to me, I guess, unless you're actively looking out to sabotage hooks. And I guess as well, you know, lots of people don't actively go out of their way to sabotage hooks. It's something that happens, you know, when the situation arises. It's not prevalent in every single game, and you know, better killers, it won't affect them that much. So yeah, I just
Yeah,
don't think this is something that you'd see every game.
yeah, definitely. The only sort of benefit having this over a toolbox, I agree with you. It's not really worth the perk slot when you can just bring a toolbox which essentially does the same job. The only thing is, obviously, if you for whatever reason really want to counter these Scourge hooks, you could sort of
Yeah,
make that a possibility. But then again, if you sort of pay attention to what hooks people are going on and then seeing the results of that, you can more or less work out which hooks are Scourge hooks anyway. So it's I just don't think it will ever be used. I understand what the devs are going for, but I think that playstyle is sort
yeah.
of it's very niche. Yeah.
I think we might see this a bit in the PTB. People like trying to work it out and do a little bit of sabotaging, but I think once it
Yeah.
leaves PTB, I don't think it will be too prevalent.
I think I think that's probably definitely the case.
Okay, so moving on, we got clairvoyance. So clairvoyance, aura reading can be handy, but there's only so many totems to go around. Clairvoyance will now activate upon blessing a totem in addition to cleansing it. So now that the perk activates, in addition to cleansing, it's a nice consistency change. I guess the problem is that now that the boon meta is kind of been and done, it's not as relevant as it would have been in the past. But at the same time, it does give you more options when taking boon perks, such as like boon circular healing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we might. This perk was never really like the actual effects that it gives you are very niche. It's still good. It's still nice to have that information, but like you said, Docsha, a lot of this perk's uh, playability would have been in the boon meta after the sort of changes to Circle of Healing. It's still a strong perk, Circle of Healing, but it's not meta anymore. And I think these changes are sort of too late to see this perk become to any level of relevance really.
Yeah,
I think it's a nice consistency change. It means that you can run clairvoyance with boon perks now rather than one or the other, which is nice. It's always nice to have a bit more variety in builds. But I don't think this will affect pick rates at all. It's just a
no,
quality of life change that realistically should have really been in the game since the perks launch. But it's nice that it's happened now. I don't think it'll affect too much. It's just nice that it's
it's
a
just
thing.
an accessibility change.
Yeah.
Not much else to say on that, I don't think. So we're going to move on to breakout. So breakout is when you helps you save a friend by putting yourself in harm's way. With the spacing between hooks, it can be very difficult for a survivor to wiggle out before getting hooked. Though we don't want this to become too common, we found that it wasn't coming into play too often. Breakout now increases the wiggle speed of the carried survivor by 25%, was originally 20%. However, to make this more risky, Breakout activates within a 5-meter range. So they're upping the risk and upping the reward. Or not upping the reward stays the same. But yeah, so they're making you get more value for the risk you put in, right? So I think probably the case was because hooks are very close together. They probably found out that most people weren't wiggling off unless you know certain things were happening, like getting body blocked and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I don't think wiggling off should become too common. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think there's too much to say about it really, because it's just like you know you help your people get off the killer, sorry, but there's a chance you could get hit.
Yeah, it's made it a little bit more risky with the lack of distance needed between the killer and the survivor. But obviously, you get that 7% haste effect, so it's not too much of an issue unless the killer has agitation, maybe. But yeah, it's just going to make it where it's a niche perk. A lot of these perks are niche. That's probably why they're getting changes. But it's a niche perk that doesn't really come into play too often, especially if people are running oak offerings. So hopefully, you're not going to see masses amount of people wiggle out, like you say. But every now and again, you're going to see this perk actually come into use, and I think you get quite good rewards when that happens. So hopefully, it might promote it a little bit. But again, this is the kind of perk that you only really running Swift squads, and even then, you've got people taking hits. It's a good buff. It's a buff that probably was needed to an underrun perk. It won't change too much fundamentally about the game though, and it probably won't really increase the pick rate too much either.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So buckle up. So, buckle up. You can't always be guaranteed that the killer will leave a survivor on the ground in the first place, so when a perk like Buckle Up comes into play, we want to make sure that it is impactful. We have revisited this perk and given it a new effect, so a complete brand new effect. Upon healing a survivor from the dying state, both you and the healed survivor gain the endurance status effect for 6, 8, and 10 seconds.
What do we think about this one then?
Okay, so I feel like so first of all, it's kind of scary, really, from a killer perspective, how many kind of endurance kind of abilities are coming into the game. I know Made for this was only recently introduced,
Yeah,
so it's kind of, I would almost say, concerning the amount of endurance effects. And I think we spoke about this before. Especially against new killers, people who are new to the game, people not understand why it's taking 3 or so hits to down a survivor, which could potentially ruin their gaming experience. It's in tandem with stuff like Made for This, Dead Hard, stuff like that. I think they just need to be careful with endurance status effects, and I think that they've learned in the past from perks such as Dead Hard that you, the endurance status effect cannot last for a long time. I don't know if 10 seconds is too much.
yeah. I think it was a needed change because Buckle Up before, it was crap. No one was running it. So it's sort of a change that has made the perk actually viable. Like you say, though, it's sort of just not really much else to add. It's just we're seeing an increase in endurance perks, and I think newer killers especially might be confused why endurance is being applied when you've got so many other perks that already apply it in different ways and potentially stacking ways as well. You mentioned, Dead Hard, Off the Record, We're Gonna Live Forever, Soul Guard made for this, etc., etc. Really, so yeah, it's something that might be potentially problematic, but it's an anti-slugging perk. Anti-slugging perks are always good,
Yeah, that's true.
so it's it's fine. I think it's
I
fine. It's just something to keep an eye on anyway. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I guess because it's an anti-slugging perk, it always has the potential to be seen. People, I think solo queue people are especially wary of slugging, and it's harder to counter it in solo queue games. So it's definitely something that people could take. Um, Whether it will have a high pick rate is yet to be seen. I think that's something we'll have to find out during the PTB.
Definitely, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Smash Hit. So, when it comes to exhaustion perks, Smash Hit isn't too popular. Stunning the killer with a pallet is sometimes easier said than done. To make Smash Hit a more interesting choice, we have reduced the duration of the exhaustion effect to 30, 25, and 20 seconds, and was originally 60, 50, and 40 seconds respectively. So, Smash Hit, huh? Um, Interesting because I can't hit pallet stuns, so yeah, I'm not going to take this perk. God damn it. No, but it's good because it's an exhaustion perk, and you do gain. I think you gain the speed boost from it. But then it is unreliable because it does rely on being able to hit pallet stuns, which is, to be fair, harder said than done, done than said.
Yeah,
Um,
and uh, on top of that as well, it's sort of like other exhaustion perks like balanced landing, for example. You can use as many times as you want. It is based on a limited resource, so it's one of those exhaustion perks that gets sort of weaker throughout the match, even if you can be one of those people to reliably hit pallet stuns. So I think that is part and parcel of why we've seen this uh, exhaustion reduction in terms of cooldown.
Yeah.
But it still has, outside of cooldown, it still has those benefits on top of other perks. Sprint burst is a 3 second 150% movement speed bonus, whereas smash hit is a 4 second 150% movement speed bonus. So the fact that it's a 20-second cooldown on that sort of um, that sort of powerful ability might make it a bit more appealing to some players. But personally, I don't think I'll really use this. Just the reliability of pallets and sort of especially in solo queue,
Yeah,
you
where
don't really know what's
people
going to
waste
happen.
your bloody pallets, don't they? They just drop them the second they see a killer.
Exactly. If I did run this perk, I would almost definitely always run windows of opportunity with it.
Yeah, it would be good in like competitive high level stacks as well, where people manage the pallets quite well. I guess the only thing really left to say on this is I think one thing that I'd probably criticize about it is you don't really run more than one exhaustion perk, right? There's only very certain situations where you do.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that people would take this over perks like life and sprint burst? I don't think they do. In my eyes, I don't see people. I don't see the majority of people taking it over perks like that. But then I guess at the same time is the cooldown's quite nice. You think of perks like Vigil, it goes down to, if it's used in combination with that, it goes down to 14 seconds. So it means that if you're able to successfully get pallet stuns, you can actually use this quite a lot, and can use it quite a bit. After the exhaustion's worn off, compared to perks like Sprint Burst and Life, which have high cooldowns.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think, like you sort of mentioned earlier, with Vigil, this will go down to a 14-second cooldown. So yeah, it's definitely sort of found its place within the exhaustion perk lineup. Shortest exhaustion cooldown out of any of them. I think, unless I'm not mistaken, it's got the longest duration of sprint burst. But obviously,
It's like
both
four
of those
seconds, isn't it?
things, yeah, it's 4 seconds, where pretty much everything else is 3. But obviously, both of those things are due to the unreliable nature of the perk itself. So
Yeah,
I guess we'll see.
it's
Sort
like
of high risk, high reward.
high skill, high reward. It's like if you're able
Yeah,
to hit the pallet stuns, you get more than like just a perk that activates just by hitting a vault or just running. So
definitely.
yeah, so it will be valuable for people who are good at hitting pallet stuns. And then last of all, we've got Spine Chill. So before the visual terror radius was introduced, Spine Chill was often used by deaf and hard of hearing players to give themselves some sort of indication of the terror's killer radius. When Spine Chill was reworked, we made sure to keep the element unchanged until a proper accessibility setting could be introduced. Now that the visual terror radius is available, we are removing the terror radius visualization aspect of this perk. So not much to say of this really. It's just a consistency change. It's just something it doesn't need to be on the perk because they've got something that already does that. So yeah, not much to say. I think you don't have anything to say, Mr. Trauts, do you?
Not really. It was always a temporary addition to the perk while they worked on the accessibility feature, and as you say, now it's in the game. There's no reason for it to be there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so now we've got the killer tweaks. We've got some pretty big killer tweaks and add-on changes here. Um, so as a reminder, these are meant to be minor changes and do not replace full-scale killer updates. So the first one we've got is an interesting one, which is the Executioner. So the Executioner has a built-in mechanic to prevent him from camping a survivor in one of his cages. If he comes within 5 meters of a cage, it will disappear and reappear somewhere else on the map. This range is fairly small, which means the killers can stay nearby and wait for survivors to move in for the save. To make this mechanic a little bit more effective, they are increasing its range to 10 meters.
Uh, yeah. I think the main reason for this is because previously with 5 meters, um, for reference, do you know how long the
8
attack
meters.
is? It's 8 meters.
Trailer torment attack is 8 meters.
Oh, yeah, so previously you could damage survivors by just standing outside of this range and just spawn camp them outside of the cages. Because for those people that don't know, when you escape from a cage, you don't get the borrowed time effects or any anti-tunneling, anti-perks activate, or off the record doesn't activate, for example. So some people might just camp. So this means that you can't do that because you have to be within the range to be able to hit them. And if they're in the range, they get teleported somewhere else. So it sort of reduces the camping aspect of the killer. The only way you can still do that is if you stack both range add-ons on top of each other. So it's potentially something they still need to maybe tweak and look into. Maybe this, because I know from previous patches that we've covered on the podcast before, um, uh, the Executioner is some killer that they're looking into. So
Yeah,
maybe in the future we might see some add-on changes to make that not a possibility, or some other changes to do with the cages mechanics on a fundamental level. But for now, it's at least a nice anti-camping change. Hopefully, they do a bit more with it in the future to make it a completely anti-camping change.
it just feels like they can never get it right with the Executioner. Like they want to buff him, and everyone like complains about it, and then they can't they nerf him, and then everyone will probably complain about it. But it's one of those
Yeah,
things where I can see this making the live. I feel like it is very fair. It promotes um, anti-camping kind of stuff.
yeah, definitely. The,
Um,
the the only styles of gameplay that harms are toxic or types of gameplay they don't really want in the game. So yeah, I think this will make live.
okay, so the Spirit. So they've changed a number of so they've changed a number of add-ons to the Spirit. So the Mother-Daughter Ring. This add-on, which increases the spirit's movement speed while using Yamaoka's Haunting, is currently far stronger than we'd like. To bring it closer in line with other add-ons, we have reduced the movement speed bonus to 25%, was 40%. So just a little nerf.
Yeah, Mother Daughter Ring was probably one of the strongest add-ons in the game for Killer, and I know a lot of people, content creators especially, have been um, asking for its nerf for a very, very long time. So I think this is going to be well received by the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spirit's kind of strong enough as it is. She
Yeah,
doesn't she
definitely.
doesn't need any speed bonuses. Okay, dry cherry blossom. This add-on, sorry, triggers killer instinct on survivors who come within 4 meters of the spirit while she is in Yamaoka's haunting. Any information about a survivor's location is crucial while the spirit is using her power, and given its fairly large range, this add-on has been overperforming. So I think this kind of the reason why they've changed it is because if you know where the survivor is when chasing them, you kind of almost guaranteed to get a hit off using the power. So I can see why it is definitely been overperforming.
Yeah, even with it being a small change, like it says, we've reduced the killer instinct range of dried cherry blossom to 3 meters was 4. Even though it's a 1 meter change, I think it's probably needed if to bring it in line with some of those other add-ons.
Yeah, completely agree. It's nice to see that the spirit is getting somewhat of a little nerf. I feel like although we don't see it too much, how many times do you remember how many times we've seen her in the games?
I think about 5, maybe.
Yeah,
5.
so although she's not the most seen killer, she is very strong. I know that when I play against her, the killer normally gets quite a lot of hooks and kills.
Yeah,
Um, So the next one is Yakuyoke Amulet. I think I said that right. Shiawase Amulet and Kayan Talisman. Each of these add-ons increases the duration of Yamaoka's haunting. However, since the spirit's power recharges over a set time regardless of duration, this also meant that these add-ons had a hidden secondary effect of making her power recharge faster. These add-ons will no longer cause Yamaoka's haunting to recharge faster. Their respective duration increases remain unchanged.
yeah. So again, this is something that a lot of people have been asking to be changed for a very, very long time, and it's nice to see the devs not only directly address that this has been a thing, but also fix it. It's going to be very well received and something that's long overdue. So, complete props to the devs. I think it's very good.
And then we've got the Origami Crane. Since the add-ons above no longer increase recovery rate, we wanted to ensure that options were still available if you want to recover your power faster. So Origami Crane now increases the recovery rate of Yamaoka's haunting by 20%, was originally 10%. So essentially what they've done is with the perks above, with the add-ons above, they've kind of removed the recharge rate so that you now have to use a separate add-on to be able to have further recharge rate, so it's kind of blocking off one slot, right? Well, that's
Yeah,
the way that I see it.
yeah. It's because before you wouldn't really use this because it was like a hidden effect of the other add-ons. So now not only are they nerfing the other add-ons to what they should have been, but they're doing a bit of a compensation buff to this, so you can sort of have the same play style you had before by blocking off one of the add-ons like you said, but also it sort of forces people to use a little bit more add-ons because this wouldn't have been seen really that much. Now people are going to want to use it, and with the increase as well, I think it's fine.
Yep, I completely agree. Because any nerf to the nurse or the spirit is welcome in my books. So now we got the rusty flute. I've got a rusty flute. Likewise, rusty flute is also receiving an increase in light of the changes above, and now increases the recovery rate of Yamaoka's haunting by 40% and was originally 25%.
Yeah,
So it's
nothing more
pretty
to
much the
say.
same as
It's
above.
the same, yeah.
I think Rusty Flute is a very rare perk.
It is. I can actually check right now if you want. The rusty flute is, drumroll please. It is. No, it's a rare. It's a rare perk.
So is Origami Crane a common?
Uh, is the what? Sorry.
Origami Crane must be common then, because it's lower than Rusty Flute.
Yeah, it's a common. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's just kind of scaling the add-ons to kind of their rarity. So next we have so just actually quickly before we move on, do you think this will change anything to the spirit? Do you think we'll see less spirits, or do you think the spirit will be weaker, or do you think we'll see different
Um,
add-ons being taken?
I think we'll see the same number of spirits. When it comes to add-ons, I think we will see a difference. Without a shadow of a doubt, Mother Daughter Ring was the strongest
Excuse me.
add-on that Spirit had, and probably one of the strongest in the games. Now that it's been changed, I think people will still run it. It's still a good add-on, but with it being sort of drawn back a bit, it allows people to venture out and use some of these other add-ons. And on top of that, with these other add-ons, strong add-ons, mind you, have their secondary effects sort of taken away and added to other add-ons. I think it will help diversify Spirit's add-on usage throughout the board. So I think it's really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the fact that they kind of they've not had like certain effects combined into one add-on and separated them. I think it means that the spirit is not too overpowered when you're taking certain add-ons. Like you're not guaranteed to win games, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so next we've got the Hag. The Hag is also receiving a few add-on adjustments in this update, which is a good thing because we have not seen her in the 150 games. She is
No.
hard to find. Um, so Waterlog Shoe. Waterlog Shoe removes the Hag's ability to teleport to her phantasm traps, but slows nearby survivors while providing the Hag with a permanent movement speed boost. This add-on isn't doing as well as we'd like, so we've increased the movement speed bonus to 7.5%, which was originally 4.5%. So this perk's interesting because it kind of changes her kind of mechanic really, um, with the
Yeah,
ability to
so
teleport.
so you sort of lose that sort of webbing map traversal play style that Hag is known for and sort of replaces it with just a solid increase in movement speed. Previously, this was an ultra rare add-on, so you assume it's going to be pretty good. Before, it just made you less than a 115 killer. You were a 14.5% killer. Now, with you being a 17.5% killer, it's still not a great add-on, but at least you're faster than a normal 115 killer. With stuff like play with your food and some other stuff, and with the traps still slowing survivors, you might be able to get some sort of unique gameplay loop out of it. It's probably not going to be very widely used by Hag players,
No, I
but
agree.
at least if you do want to use this perk for this kind of play style, it's a bit more effective.
Yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't have a high pick rate anyway because I think the
No.
Hag, the fact she's not a high pick killer, combined with the fact that she loses her ability to teleport, you're kind of losing your map traversal in a way.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely. It's
so
it's a very strange add-on.
it is a very strange add-on. I will agree with you there. Um, okay, so the Mint Rag. This add-on allows the Hag to teleport to any phantasm trap in the trial, even if it hasn't been triggered, or with a 15-second cooldown. This can allow for some interesting mind games, but the long cooldown can make it very punishing if you use it at the wrong time. So what they've done is they have reduced the teleport cooldown to 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's another ultra rare add-on for the Hag. Just a nice buff, really. Not many people ran it, I don't think. I think it can be a pretty strong add-on. Just like the patch notes say, it sort of got held back by its cooldown, so we might see a bit more of this. Hopefully, if we ever go against her, that is.
Yeah, I think it's because, I mean, the Hag overall is, as a killer, is very punishing if you make mistakes. So I think this is just simply making it less like you'll punish less if you make a mistake, because
Yeah,
she's
definitely.
hard enough as it is, you know. Um, so we have half eggshell and cracked turtle egg. These add-ons increase the duration of triggered phantasm traps, allowing her more time to get in range to teleport and a longer window to teleport in a chase. Both are underperforming at the moment, so we are giving them a slight increase. Half eggshell now increases the phantasm trap duration by 45%, was originally 30, and cracked turtle egg now increases phantasm trap duration by 55%, was originally 35%.
I think these are good changes. We might see these add-ons being used more within Hag players. I think the old duration was a bit too low because you might be chasing a survivor, downing them, and then the other survivor that you wanted to teleport to, well, that trap isn't active anymore. So
Yeah,
hopefully this makes a few more situations where you can pick and match between chasing different survivors a little bit more reliably. But yeah, just it's nice to see old killers like Hag still get love in these recent updates all these years later. So I think it's nice that they're changing these things about her and still looking out for her.
and fingers crossed we see her in the next 17 games.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Um, so and basically we had a bet, right. When we see all the killers by, I know this is a bit off topic, but I said 167, you said 140,
43, I think. Yeah.
43. So if we see all of them fairly soon, I think we're just missing like two killers, right?
I think we're missing three killers. I think we're missing
Yeah.
Hag,
Nightmare.
uh, Nightmare, and Pig. I think that's it.
So hopefully we see all three of them in 17 games. Anyway, moving on from that tangent, Cold Wind Farm balance update. As announced during this year's anniversary broadcast, they are essentially looking to regularly revisit and rebalance existing maps. So the first one they want to do is Fractured Cowshed and Rancid Abattoir. For the Cowshed, we found this map leaned too heavily in favour of survivors. There's a few causes for this. First, the most useful tiles form a big ring around the entire map. This made it very easy for survivors to run from one pallet to another with very little risk of being caught in between. Second, the barn itself was a fairly strong setup for survivors, allowing them to waste quite a bit of the killer's time before leaving. Third, the centre of the map is mostly empty, featuring only corn. Once the generator in the corn is completed, the killer has to patrol a big circle around the entire map to find survivors, making it very time consuming. To remedy this, we have made significant layout changes to the map, breaking up the strong outer ring of the tiles in the process. Additionally, we have made some adjustments to the layout of the barn itself, which is now slightly closer to the middle of the map to reduce its strength. So, yeah, I guess the problem with this map, right, is like they said, it's kind of like a big ring, nothing in the middle, all the strong stuff's on the outside, right? So if you're a survivor and you're caught in the middle, you kind of get caught with your pants down. You kind of basically going to die unless you get to a vault or a pallet. But if you're the killer and the gens get done in the middle, you kind of have, or they're getting done in the middle, you have to patrol a big area, right? That's kind of largely unfilled. So it's nice to see that they're changing this map because it can be fairly frustrating to play on this map. I don't know if you'll agree with me there, Dr. Trauts. I know you're more of a killer main than I am.
Yeah, definitely. These maps were some sort of amongst the few that I didn't really like playing on that much. So it's nice to see that they are going back to old, even since the Realm Beyond update. It's nice to see that them going back to these old maps and fixing up some player complaints there. So it's nice to know that they are listening to those things. Um, I think it's sort of a remains to be seen situation because it's nice on paper, but we don't really know what the specifics are yet because I haven't been on the PTB. Um, but no, just from a what it sounds like point of view, it sounds like they're really trying to get underway with these changes, and it's really good. Hopefully, in the next couple of updates, we see the end of the Realm Beyond update with the Swamp Realms being revamped. But that's a bit of a tangent. For now, it's nice to see that these old maps are getting a bit of love.
Okay, and for Rancid Abattoir, depending on how the map generated, the slaughterhouse could feature strong setups for survivors, allowing them to waste a good amount of killers' time. Additionally, the large freezer in the center of the building featured a single entrance and nothing important to gameplay, i.e. no pallets or windows, leaving little reason for anyone to explore it. We have updated the layout of the slaughterhouse to make stronger setups less effective. We've also opened up the wall in the back of the freezer to allow players to navigate it more easily. Across the entire realm, you'll have noticed updated corn tiles with added details, as well as updated edge titles along the map's outer fences. So yeah, they just feel like with Rancid Abattoir, they're trying to make every kind of tile of the map useful, right?
Yeah, you're not going to have those useful tiles sort of in little pockets. They've sort of made the whole map as a as a singularity, sort of more useful and more consistently useful. So that I think it's a good change.
I agree with you. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I have missed.
Most of it,
Um,
isn't it?
no, I think that's all of it. I think we've completely covered the developer update so far.
And
Um,
the Nick Cage update. So
and the
we've
Nick
done
Cage
everything there.
stuff. I think the only thing we missed is looking at Nick Cage, but
The the only small things I have to say about Nick Cage that I've just seen pop up here. For anyone interested, apparently there'll be new survivor and killer portraits when you're in the selection screen in the new menu, uh, in the update and when this is live. Additionally, apparently Nick Cage has voice lines. He has custom voice lines, and additionally, in game when he meets Myers or Onryo, he will have unique voice lines for those two specific killers as well. And that's pretty much everything.
and if you're wondering what he looks like Nick Cage.
There you go.
So that's just a quick Google search away. So yeah, so thank you for everyone. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. If you disagree with what we said, please leave a comment. Let us know if if you think we've missed anything, or we said anything wrong, or we got any of the details wrong. If you like what you saw, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and also leave a comment. Join the Discord, look at the Twitches, all that shebang. Thank you very much for watching. We have been
Yeah.
the Entities Here podcast, and we will see you in the next episode.
See you later, guys.